Two folks, welcome back to So Bad It's Good, presented by Betches Media. Today, I have a returning guest. The first time he was on the show, he was here to talk about his so insanely good podcast, One Song, which he co-hosts with Luxury. And they break down some of your favorite songs, albums, musicians, artists. And I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. I tell you guys that all the time, but I listen to this one. This is something when I treat myself, it's this podcast. I'm telling you, everybody I've recommended it to has thanked me. I've personally gone out of my way to recommend this podcast to my friends and family. So One Song, go subscribe, rate it 5 stars right now, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But that's just like the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this guy. He is a producer, writer, showrunner, actor. You might have seen the show Sherman Showcase, The Amazing South Side. He's working on a couple of shows right now, like Book of Marlon with Marlon Wayans. And also, when I was going over his resume, there's actually a credit for Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, which I need to talk to him about. I finally got to meet him at the Watch What Crappens Crappy Awards this past year. But man, I love this dude so much. The one, the only, Diallo Riddle. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate being here again. And last time I was here to talk about my podcast about music, but today I'm here to talk about something far more important: the fact that we had the Greek flag flying at the Milwaukee Bucks game. And it wasn't even a thing.
No. By the way, Angie wanted so badly to get the attention. She couldn't have had a bigger flag if she tried on top of the Greek sunglasses, everything Greek.
She just wanted to meet Giannis, and I felt so bad for her that it clearly didn't happen. Either he didn't sign the form, and Damian Lillard did, but she did everything she could possibly do, and yet the Giannis meetup did not happen.
That's what. It cracked me up. They're chanting Giannis when they go in, and there is never one picture or one introduction with Giannis, which I thought was so telling. But also, that's kind of why I like Salt Lake, because it's that ridiculousness. It's so ridiculous already dressing up like that, and Angie being so amazingly proud of her Greek heritage, which is awesome. But all the costuming, and then not to even get a photo.
Not to even get a photo. You just always get the sense that Salt Lake is that one show that it may not happen at all, but yet you still stay tuned because you're kind of there for it's a different kind of train wreck. It's an absolutely different kind of train wreck. I'll even go so far as to say, and I always, whenever you're talking about Housewives, you never want to come across as sounding overly classist, but the hotel rooms that they had, they didn't look like the hotel rooms that the glam squad on Beverly Hills would ever even get. You know what I mean? It just looked like. Well, were they at Howard Johnson? What was going on there?
They're in Milwaukee. Did Salt Lake get the short end of the stick? By the way, I love Milwaukee, but my God, all of these we
love Milwaukee. Love Milwaukee. Yes, I do wonder. I always assumed that they were oh, guys, guess where we're going? San Diego. I always figured that was a function of Jen Shaw's not being able to leave the country.
Yes. Well, by the way, that's what I was told it was, but there's no excuse for it.
There's no excuse anymore. Now it's just so we're going to Milwaukee. They're landing when he's this is so cute. I'm guys, we've been to Milwaukee.
And
they're talking about it it's Mykonos.
Angie, I really turned a corner on Angie K, and I really like her as a character.
I have too, man. This is a good episode for her.
She's so but I also want to tell her you've got the job. Every time she was we're here in Milwaukee, she was Milwaukee, yeah. And I was you guy, we get it. You're not going to be let go. You're here for the full season.
Oh, Andy H is not around. You don't have to worry about this anymore. We're not.
Well, Salt Lake, like you said, it does kind of inhabit this completely different universe than other housewife shows, because I feel like there's I always tell the audience there's a David Lynchian, John Waters quality about Salt Lake. And I think it's that background of religion. You have all those shots that look like Stanley Kubrick's The Shining with the winter background.
And the Overlook Hotel. Yeah, totally.
Yes. And then just the way, the characters, even Mary Cosby this season, who came to who gave Mary Cosby happy pills all of a sudden? Are you what is your opinion on Mary Cosby thus far in 3 episodes?
Oh man. I know as soon as I say this, I am dooming myself to one day meet her and she's going to hate me. can I just take a step back and say, like, first season, I legitimately, like, I was like, I don't think I like this person. When she went away and just became like a friend of the series, I was like, this is the perfect amount of Mary. I love this amount of Mary. When she came back, admittedly, like, I don't know, man. I feel like she makes stuff up so much. Like that whole story about her dad smelling Jeffrey
Jeffrey
Dahmer. Like,
Dahmer.
first off, I don't think you can make that up. So I don't think that she's lying about her dad saying that. But it's also like, how did smelling? Like, I'm sure she's implying that there was like cadaver smell, but like, didn't he put the bodies in like cold storage and like freezers and stuff? Like, it just seems made up. Like, I'm just always like, Mary, is that true? Is that really true? Like, she said she doesn't use public bathrooms. Like, none of us enjoy that. None of us enjoy public bathrooms, but like, really, you never use the public bathroom? Like, never, ever, ever, ever? Like, that was just a weird conversation. I don't know. That conversation was like,
Well, but Diallo,
yeah.
you got to remember, she comes from like obviously it's a family of like really good sniffers. She can smell hospital.
That's
Like
right. She was in the
remember,
hospital.
like her whole
Totally.
family must be gifted with this. So we might like, what if it comes out that Mary Cosby is completely like dead on? It sounds ridiculous, but she's telling the truth 100% of the time. It's so bizarre to us.
It's going to come out that she's actually blind, like Daredevil, the superhero, and that her other her other senses are heightened.
but I will say Mary Cosby seems like she's making an effort this season where it seems like she's
Yes, it's
enjoying
true.
herself and her
I mean, she went to the
friendship.
bobblehead museum. I couldn't believe
Oh,
it. Was like, wait, you don't want to do all these other activities, but you'll go to the bobblehead museum? Okay, all right.
and she even played along. She was like, "Oh, the Golden Girls, that's like us. Some of us are grumpy, some of us are moody." And like usually Mary would just walk away and say, "I don't want to film." And she participated, which is such like we ask so little of some of these ladies, but now she's friends with Angie K, who we know now is Greek. And that's
We just
as
got
well.
breaking news. Breaking
Yeah.
news. No, I mean, like, I feel like the old Mary would have been like, no, I don't go near bobbleheads. Those things have your spirit inside of them, and I don't like all that chicken.
Yeah, not
That's
around
the old Mary.
spooky season. It's child's play. No.
Exactly. They might have Chucky up in there going like this, and I ain't going to be in there looking at something bobbling like that. Uh, and that is obviously what she called Whitney before. So I thought she had but maybe that wasn't an insult at all. It was a loving compliment when she called Whitney a bobblehead.
Are you like me where like I'll like Lisa Barlow? I always this season especially like I kind of don't agree with Lisa Barlow like 90% of the time, but I do love her dearly as a housewife. I feel like she's this interesting
show wouldn't work without it.
Yeah, like I mean, what is your take on Lisa Barlow?
There have been times, man, I was like, I think season one when she was always eating Taco Bell, like that was my favorite Lisa Barlow. I just loved her. And then by the way, did we notice that they went to Wendy's this year? And I was like, did somebody like piss off? Like, I feel like Wendy's stepped up where Taco Bell did not, because like all of a sudden, like she's all about Wendy's. So I thought that was really interesting.
And by the way, if you look at Lisa Barlow's social media, she now has a sponsorship deal with Wendy's.
Oh, so, see, like, I knew it. I called
Taco Bell is done. Taco Bell's
out the window.
Wendy's 24/7. But yeah, like I mean that.
I love Barlow. I love Barlow, and obviously there have been highs and lows with my relationship with Barlow. But I will say this season, it's been really interesting because I do feel like, okay, first off, she brings Bronwyn into the group, right? And so that's a classic Housewives recipe for they're going to have problems. Like I feel like they always say, the person you bring in is like the first person you have like major beef with, so you can have that line like, I brought you in.
Rinna used to do this all the time on Beverly Hills. She'd bring in somebody and destroy them.
Well, you don't have to use this if we don't.
Yeah.
Didn't Rinna bring in Denise?
Yes.
Yes.
I believe Rinna brought in Sutton as well.
Is that true? Oh my gosh, yeah. Well,
because remember, like the whole Oscars party with Harry Hamlin and the invites?
Right. That's right. Yeah. So I'm saying, like, Riddle was definitely like, "Hey, come on and do this show." I can't stand it. She brings in Bronwyn, who I let me finish with Barlow, and then I have something to say about Bronwyn. I think that Barlow is she's coming across pretty good in this episode. Can I say? Because I feel like there have been some other episodes already where she was like just kind of yelling. and like immediately taking the victim role. And I love the shot of her throwing the glass. It looks like she's trying to be Teresa, but she didn't really have the heart to do a full on throw.
Well, she knew the camera angle wouldn't go that far, so she was like,
it almost looks like it was edited to be like, is the camera over there? Like it was just like not a full-hearted throw. I think she was actually, in some ways, really trying to be a better friend in this episode, which is ironic because it ultimately ends with that confrontation at the end, where Brown was sort of like trying to point out to Lisa and to Heather, like, you guys are sort of guilty of what you guys are accusing me of doing. I'm generally a Barlow fan.
No, I mean, yeah, but it's like this. I love that these are like simple situations of like, are we like making fun of somebody we shouldn't be making fun of? Like, are we teasing somebody? You don't know somebody well enough to do that. And Heather has this innate paranoia now because of Monica Garcia from last season. So she thinks everybody's wearing a wire. Everybody's like turning on her. And I like that kind of paranoia. But, you said you were going to say about Bronwyn, like, I think she's handling herself well so far. Except
I think guys, I know that
too much too soon.
No. I've seen that comment online, but I think I'm one of the Bronwyn fans. I think she's actually. I'm going to be a little controversial. I think that she's a great addition. I sort of love clothes as art. Every time we cut her confessional, she's wearing something new that's like absolutely insane, and I think it's like part of why I'm enjoying her. But I also think that we need that energy. We need somebody who's willing to come in and shake it up. You just mentioned Heather, and I have been one of the biggest Heather proponents from the very beginning of the show. I love first season Heather so much. I did not love when Bad Weather went south 18 million times, and it was nice to see Bad Weather just casually getting along, like nothing had ever happened.
Yeah, they did a shot this episode. They did it, and they would call it like what was it?
And
like,
they weren't mad at each other.
Boozing cousins, or what did Whitney say? Like, we're boozing buddies or something. But I was like, wow, you're doing a shot together and drinking Celsius. Amazing.
Yes, and they were getting along. But here's the thing: I feel like Heather may be falling into a trap that I feel like Kyle is guilty of on Beverly Hills, which is she seems like she's trying to control the group. Like she seems really like she's. I think on Vanderpump Rules, I heard someone say, she's trying to be a producer. Like it does feel like she's like, guys, we can't trust Bronwyn, and what's Bronwyn up to? And can you believe what Bronwyn said? Like, there's a lot of that going on. Even her interaction with my good friend Meredith sort of felt like, oh, by the way, you should confront Whitney directly with that stuff that you're saying about her. Like, she seems like she's like trying to control things, and I don't love that look. I really still in my heart of hearts love the Heather that first season just seemed like the very down to earth. She's the one who's not going to let this go to her head type of person, and now I feel like she's kind of the opposite, where she's like kind of trying to control things. That's just my read of the situation.
No, that's exactly the read, because I said the same exact thing. Was that just Heather had this kind of beautiful insecurity that she wore on her sleeve the first season that you kind of really rooted for, because you're like, oh, she's like, if I was on this show, she's me. And then
100%.
And then the success, and I got to tell you, like, you've written on a lot of sitcoms, you've made a lot of things, you've written for late night TV. It's almost with this receipts, proof, timeline, screenshots. It's like that like line that she now has to say every time. And it's that trap of like believing your own press, maybe. And now I feel like, well, we have to take it back then to the finale of last season when Heather did confront Monica Garcia's reality Von Tease. What was your overall take on that? Because I thought it was a phenomenal hour of television.
Oh, I'm so glad I get to get my take out there in the world. No, I am, because
you're doing important
my take
work
is not everybody's
today,
take. My take is not everybody's take. My opinions are my own. There was something that Monica brought to this show, guys. I that's just what I fundamentally believe. Like, I understand why she can't be a part of the show, because they can't pretend that she's in the friend group when everybody else is reacting the way that they ended up reacting, and how much Heather knew before she made the reveal. I guess we'll probably never know for sure, but there was something that Monica brought into this group that was really exciting, and that is one of the best finales of any TV show, season finales of a TV show that I've ever seen. It was just, and but I will say this, and the internet did so much with the the Italian fresco of like all of them, comforting
Yeah.
each other. That was great. But when the first hint that this was going to be a season where Heather might lose me a little bit was when I saw the trailer, and and she's like, she says that line about timelines, receipts, and I was just like, oh, that was so long ago. Like we don't have to go back to that. And a part of me did wish that there could be Monica, or that there could be Jen Shaw did terrible things. We don't want to reward terrible behavior, but the show did lose something when Jen Shaw went away, and I feel like Monica filled that void, but then it lost Monica, and I worry about the show becoming dull. You don't want the show to become dull. I think that's why maybe I'm liking Bronwyn, because she doesn't seem like she's willing to just come in and be, Angie K is a pleaser. I feel like Bronwyn comes in and she's like, you know what? I see how these things go down, but I'm going to tell you how it's appearing to me and to a lot of people who watch the show. I think that kind of attitude keeps it from becoming dull. You don't want the show to become dull. Like you were saying earlier, like this is the David Lynch waiting for Guffman Community Theater version of Housewives. And the worst thing I think you can be is be dull. No, we tune in to see Angie wearing that Greek flag around her neck. Oh my God, poor girl.
I mean, what was that? You what?
No, I was going to say one of my favorite moments, and I like it to not be boring. One of my favorite moments was a Lisa Barlow moment, like when she said that how does Vinny's friend pronounce her name? Is it Mille? How's it? Meal?
Melly. No.
Melly?
Melly. Because I got it wrong the
first
time.
I heard them say it, but I was looking at the spelling and I just got lost. But let's call her M.
Meili.
Oh, okay, now,
yeah.
I'll try to use her name not that much, and you can cut this up. So it seems like we know we were talking about. One of my favorite Lisa Barlow moments actually came because it was one of those really not boring moments. Was when she said to Wendy's friend, when she said to Wendy's friend, I need to say her name at least once. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, I'll figure it out.
You'll drop it in.
Yep.
Yeah, her. When she says, "Oh my gosh, I heard that Nordstrom has banned her from returning items." That was so classic Teddy Lisa. And by the way, I have to just ask the question: like, does Nordstrom actually do that? Do they have like a banning committee? Do they have like a bureaucracy?
It was like, wow, they have profiles on all these women. I said, I want to see that documentary about like who's like passing, like who's on the cusp of getting cut out of Nordstrom.
That's the true crime documentary that we need. I need to see like a bank of TVs in the security office of Nordstrom's, and like a guy like checking cross-referencing like the retinal data with their list of people who've been banned from the banning committee. Like that is the true crime documentary I think we're all deserving. Anyway, I just don't want the show to ever become boring. And I think that some of Heather's actions, in trying to, wrest control of this show and be the cast member who's, in control, don't do that. Heather, we like you as the person who's not so caught up in this thing that it's the most important thing in the world. Like, no, just be a little nonchalant about it all.
Well, and it shows how insane the fandom is, including and mainly myself, is that when I go and watch these things and then I look at the talking heads, even Heather's talking heads are almost seeming like more written and more like, I know this from Wayne's World and Milwaukee.
Oh, God.
We're kind of like, you're like, this doesn't feel natural. This doesn't feel funny. And
the Milwaukee, which you see coming from a mile away. Like, no, just like, can you talk real to us for like a little bit? I will say that was another great moment for Lisa Barlow, was just her talking about Jack and how like hard it is to know that your child is going through something. Like, that was real emotion. And I think that those kind of moments, you're actually reminded, Lisa's not always, playing the victim or like screaming at somebody. You didn't take up for me. Like, she's actually like a person and she's a mom. And I really thought that, not that it was planned or any kind of artifice, that was a moment that made me truly appreciate Lisa as a member of the cast as well.
Yeah, I mean, I believe, and that's why these shows work, because if you have a foundation where they're sort of real at some point, you can go insane. You can go crazy. But if Lisa can have those moments where she actually, you can tell she's a mother that is learning to let go of her son and also really worried about somebody being overseas on this mission. And of course, like if you can do that, then I can even joke of like, yeah, the guy has a stomach ache because he's like eating real food for the first time. He's not just eating like Taco Bell and Wendy's, but
Do
the
you remember
fact
when
that
Mary was like, "Your kids have bad teeth because you don't they're eating Taco Bell too much and they're malnutrition." They're something for malnutrition.
it's so good.
Classic,
Also,
classic.
to your point earlier, Monica Garcia, I will point out, I was shocked that they were able to pick it up and actually do have an entertaining first episode and an entertaining season so far, because I thought that was like a death wish of taking Monica out, because these shows are built on quote unquote real friendships. Now, we
Mm-hmm.
all know a lot of the times these are casted
Yeah,
shows. These are casted
yeah,
shows. So
yeah.
to me, that like thing of like not in the friend group, like none of these people are truly in this like contrived friend group. So I will say it is interesting. We've seen Monica talked about, or a picture of Monica in 3 out of 3 of the first episodes this season.
Yeah, no, I mean she definitely left her mark, and I think that look, there are people online. I go back and forth on this. I mean, there's a part of me that really wishes that Monica was on this because she made last season. I thought, I was one of those people. I was like, man, what a freaking debut season for a newcomer. Like that was just a different level. That
Yeah.
was just a different level,
I mean,
and
she came in like hot, and she like, I mean, and it is kind of a perfect encapsulated story. It's just that I wish there would have been a sequel, and maybe there still will be. But like as a writer, I mean, do you always view story as conflict resolution, or are you in a gray area of, because I always thought that that's something with Housewives is we always see conflict, but there's usually resolution up until New Jersey, up until Real Housewives of New Jersey. Like, and so this is just like, we just put this, there's no resolution to this. We just kick her off the show.
oh, I mean, listen, we were just talking about bad weather, just getting along so nicely. I swear to God, just like last episode, we never saw that resolved at all. Like they just literally just
No.
fell back into being best friends. They were just all of a sudden best friends again. We didn't have any resolution. No, I've kind of given up, especially on this show. On Salt Lake, you just have to sort of assume that every episode is almost a freestanding episode, almost like the honeymooners. Like, so if they come in and Angie's yelling at Heather, you just have to assume that you missed something and just go along with the ride because there are plenty of scenes among these friends that are almost unjustified. No, I don't think that they're crafted like the way that we craft. I will say, as a writer, we go out of our way to do the unpredictable, but to also earn the unpredictable. Because if you
Yes.
just sort of do everything crazy, then tonally it doesn't work, and the audience eventually is just like, oh, these guys are just doing whatever the hell they want to do. So it doesn't quite work the same way in scripted, but it is working. I'm still enjoying the ride. I think there was so much fun stuff in that episode last night.
No, I mean, it was insane. Like I actually,
I
I
shouldn't
don't
say. I'm
laugh
sorry.
out loud.
I shouldn't have said last night. I'm sorry. Say what you're going to say again. I
Oh
said
no,
last
no,
night.
no.
That's wrong. You don't
No,
care.
no, no,
Okay.
dude. This is not one song. Where you guys perfectly edit. This is like warts and all. So like everybody knows that. Yeah, anyways, um,
Yeah, yeah.
eh, this is like I think of one of those shows that I will legitimately laugh out loud. Like I don't laugh out loud a
Legitimately.
lot in my life, but I will go like, no way. I
Oh
mean, like,
no, that makes me sad, Ryan. Don't tell me that. You laugh out loud.
yeah. No, like Mary Cosby. Well, like in this gives me permission to laugh. But when you're in your like solo bed eating cheese and drinking your Diet Coke, watching these shows, it's like a
Yeah.
very isolating experience. But this show is just so bizarre when you compare it to like Beverly Hills, which is like a Michael Bay film. And then like old school Roni. Old school Roni is like a glamorous mammoth, where they would just all like kind of
I can
talk
see. I
over
can
each
totally
other.
see that. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And the dialogue like this. What is Miami then? Who's directed Miami? Is that Michael Mann? Is that like
oh my
Miami
God.
Vice? What is that?
Michael Mann. Yeah, but, what would Miami be? What would Miami like? It's like a Willy Wonka kind of. No,
It's
like
got
I'm
it's got
seeing.
some big G vibes. I hate to say, like
Yeah.
it's got some Brett Ratner. I'm on a boat
Oh, no.
level.
Um, you're
Speaking of, yeah, go ahead.
no, I was going to go to Meredith, your friend Meredith. She has this is something that I loved this episode, and I'm not really into fast fashion or any fashion at all, but Meredith drops this bomb with Heather, and it's just like Meredith has these like just team of detectives, and she's like,
Who are her people?
everybody's
She's always
talking
like,
about this.
well, I heard that somebody. It's like, do you know where Carmen San Diego is? Like, we need you on some other cases because clearly you get the facts every time. No, I love how she drops the bomb on drop shipping Alibaba. Like,
And the way she
that
said
is
Alibaba too, I was obsessed. She was like Alibaba, Alibaba. And I was like, this is like so brilliant on so many different levels. And the fact that she always has information about one of her cast members at the ready. And that's why, like last season,
ready.
she was like, why does people think I threw Angie K under the bus? It was Reality Von Teese. But I'm like, this season, it seems like you do have the information all of the time.
She's got, well, but she, and I love Meredith, and that she does the thing where she says, well, it's all over social media. Like
I was tagged in it. I was tagged in it 100 times.
exactly.
You were tagged in this. You were tagged
These are
100 times.
I think, by the way, this is to answer your earlier question. I think the reason why you saw that credit on my IMDb is because I was on Watch What Happens one time with Meredith to talk about Salt Lake. So that was, I think it was the first time I ever went on. I've been on twice. That was the first time I've gone on Watch What Happens, which has been a blast.
I mean, it is kind of, I mean, like you are a fan. I know, like, how did you get involved with even watching these shows in the first place or enjoying these shows? Because you are like, you have a deep history of like, your tastes are kind of like so vast. How did Bravo come into play?
So yeah, I people ask me this a lot, and I just I love telling the story. So for years, I was the typical guy, sort of like passing through the room. My wife was watching all these shows, and I would just be like, oh yeah, okay, that's Bravo. I was definitely one of those people. And then at some point, I just like you just start falling asleep to it, and you're just like, oh, who's that again? Oh, wait, they're back together, huh? Okay, all right. And I think it was really that first. I think because believe it or not, I went back and watched the first season of Salt Lake after the second season. But the show that I think kind of hooked me in was Denise Richards' stint on Beverly Hills because I knew Denise. Yeah, I mean Denise was a recognizable face, and I was like, oh, she's on the show now. And my wife was like, yeah, oh my gosh, it's really getting salty. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I was there, and like I started watching Beverly Hills first, and then I got into Potomac, and then I think I got into Salt Lake third, if I'm not mistaken. But I think Beverly Hills was my gateway, but it was really Jen Shaw getting arrested for the opening of it was the third season. I was like, what is going on with Salt Lake? And Salt Lake was like this big, fun, crazy show, where literally anything could happen. And, between Jen Shaw and Mary Cosby, like it was just crazy. So at that point, I had to go back to the beginning and I actually watched from the beginning. And I've seen every episode, some of them twice, just because, we have friends who, really love it as well. And I was just like, well, I'll watch that. So
your wife was the gateway point in a way. And I met your wife at the Crappie Awards, and she's awesome. Yeah. But it is interesting. So she kind of brought it for you, and then it kind of like a virus slowly crept.
Yes, absolutely. And I do want to give some props because you mentioned the Crappies, which is from Watch What Crappens. That was my literal first exposure. One time we were in New York with my wife Brittany Riddle, her good friend Lindsay, and they were like, "Hey, you want to come with us? We're going to go see these guys who have a podcast called Watch What Crappens live." And I went there, and I was like, "Holy shit, this is like a concert! Like these guys are really funny." So at that point, I think that opened my mind to the idea that like there's something funny to be had in watching these shows. And then I started watching the shows, and before you know it, yeah, you and I are backstage with the Krabbies, just like having the best freaking time. Singing "Good as Gold."
I mean, like Sheena's there. Sheena, that was so fun. It really, they are these like walking characters / superheroes. Like they're on this different plane, some of the Housewives and Vanderpumpers, but it's, I love the ecosystem around them, like the Watch What Crappens and the fans. And it's really interesting. And it's like the fandom of it that I love being a part of, but we've gotten intense. Like we now half of the people are lawyers now that are fans because we dig into every one of these people's histories, including anybody on Salt Lake. Yeah, like it's wild. Where do you think this season is going to, if you, and you probably shut off this part of your brain when you're watching, but like if you could
Probably not.
predict things, like if you're writing this season, which it's not a written season, like where does it go from here in your head?
Oh God, that's a great question. I imagine that the story of the season is some sort of Heather versus uh, Bronwyn and any ally she makes to say, "Hey, I'm in charge of this show. This franchise does not exist without Heather." Yeah, I think that's probably fair. But there's some other things going on. Like I feel like I don't know Brittany yet. Brittany.
Oh yeah, we
Uh,
didn't even get Brittany and one of the Osmonds, Jared Osmond.
Jared Osmond. By the way, I read the actual text messages, and those are damning, my friend. Those
Yeah.
text messages, they only hinted at them during the show, but if like you read it, like, oh, you look, gosh, hold on one second. Let me just pull it up real quick. It was one that I absolutely loved because I was like, as a married man and a man who's been in relationships, that is something that you never send to anybody.
Yeah, because
He
this girl
says,
looked like she was posting a cute photo, and he underneath it says what?
"Oh, you are so fun." I mean, like, I'm sorry.
You are
That is
so
not
fun.
something that you ever text somebody you're not interested in.
I like that that's the Osmond version of creepy. Like, you are so fun. Like, like the non-Osmond would be like, girl, you look hot. Like, and it's like, girl, you are so fun.
Girl, you look like a coffee on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, girl, are you bad for me? Because you look like caffeine. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, when she writes back, I'm actually a little bit of a handful, LOL, but I bet you would like a little. He replies with emojis. Like, I'm sorry, at that point, that is that's not really appropriate.
I mean, he's using emojis in these messages, which I love, which is like, yeah, that's a baller move. But I am gonna say, like, Brittany, I kind of like, I was empathetic towards, and like I think we all know, or we've been that person that we're like, oh, if this person will just pay a little bit of attention to me, it will give me gas or fuel for the next day. Because like even
Yeah.
when she gets off the phone to the Bucks game, she's like, things are looking up. Things, and like, he just answered your call, girl. What do you mean things are looking up?
Oh, that was so awkward because they were literally behind her talking about these texts. Meanwhile, she's on FaceTime. She's on FaceTime at the game. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I have to bring up something as a tangent. What was with the shots of the game? Because if you look in the stands
Oh,
behind them, there's nobody
nobody's
in the
there.
stand. There's
Nobody's
nobody
there.
there. Is this before or after the
What is that?
game?
I
I
was
just
like,
have so
is
many
the Bucks
questions.
having like a poorly attended season, or did they have to get there 3 hours? No, dude, I said the
Are
same
they up
exact.
by four? Are they up by 45 points? Are they down by 45 points? Why is everybody left?
I was so confused because the way they edited it, they had them cheering and they were showing like baskets being
Yes.
made, and then they were having conversations, and the arena was like I would say 30% full, and so I was
Not
so
either. There was
confused.
one shot where there was almost nobody there, and I feel like they told Heather, "Hey, stand in between them so that your head blocks all the rows of seats behind you." No, I had so many questions about this. First off, they walk in like they're going to be courtside, right? And then at some point they're like, "Oh, we're not courtside. We're so far away."
Well,
It's
the coach,
classic Salt Lake. It's
I
why
think
you watch Salt Lake.
Angie ruined it. Angie was like on the court while they're warming up with the flag. Like I was just waiting for a player to slip on that silkiness flag and just like twist his like ankle. That's probably what happened
Damian
to them.
Lillard will not be in tonight's game because the Real Housewives of Salt Lake, another city entirely.
Well, it's funny because then
Um,
Whitney went up to Lillard and he was like, "Can I get a selfie with you?" And then everybody wanted a selfie with him. And then I think it was like maybe that was just but you're right. You watch these shows exactly like I do, where I was like, I was looking at the like the background, and then I was just like, this is so, but I love those moments. I love that it's like half full.
okay, so you asked me earlier, like if I was writing the show, how would it vary from
Yeah.
like I actually watch the show less as a writer, more as a producer. So like a lot of times when they're at restaurants, I look in the background, I'm like, this restaurant probably not open at on a Sunday at 7 a.m. That's probably when they're there. You know what I mean? Because everybody in the background looks like they put the PAs at this table because nobody ever looks up. Nobody is ever really looking in their direction. You know what I mean? Like so I'm always trying to figure out how did they shoot this. I think
Yeah.
to their credit, my theory is that they shot that all the stuff at the game either probably like right before it and probably did the stuff courtside last, so that because they knew that during an actual game there'd be so much noise, they might not have clean audio. That's my theory.
Yeah.
But that's just my theory. But to go back to the point, she's on FaceTime. They're behind her. They're talking about her, and then at one point you're like, "Can she not hear them?" And then she turns around. She's like, "Are you guys talking about me?" And I think in that moment, you were talking about how much fun Angie's having. I don't think she was having fun telling her, but I think she did the right thing. I think you absolutely have to tell somebody, "Hey, that I actually had to do that in college one time, and that person is a friend of mine to this day. But there was a guy, who I was in the class with, who I heard him bragging about. Oh yeah, so that's my girlfriend, and I knew another guy who was dating the girl that he was talking about. And so, and the other guy, by the way, the guy who was dating the girl he was talking about was a much closer friend of mine than the guy who was in class talking about that's my girlfriend. So I actually found an excuse to go over the guy's dorm room. I was like, oh yeah, by the way, so and so, she didn't. Yeah, she's. I know for a fact she's dating somebody else. So I'm just because I wanted that guy to. Yeah, I know. I mean, like people might have opinions of that, but I wanted that other guy to be able to save some face because that other guy who's in class, like that's my girlfriend, really good guy, really solid guy, and I didn't want him out here embarrassing himself. I was just like, oh, this is painful. You know what I mean? Because some of us knew about the relationship that you have with somebody else. So
was the girl involved a brow girl like Angie K, like my brow girl? And secondly, that story, I was like,
beware the brow girls. These brow girls are out here.
You could be a Salt Lake housewife, Diallo. You play your cards right. Like you got what it takes. You're having the hard conversations.
I know. I literally brought it a personal anecdote. I will say this: if your man comes home and his brows are too nice, beware the brow girl, because that whole conversation.
Oh, girl, you are fun. You are fun. Yeah.
These brow girls out there. What did Drake say one time? It's the hair of the makeup girls. I just thought that brow lady conversation was hilarious because Angie had to keep it. Well, my brow girl.
She's the best in Salt Lake. And I'm like, wow.
That's in Salt Lake. Everything is such a brag with Angie. Everything Angie says is a brag. It's so hilarious. The brow girl. Who saw that coming? You think you could let your man go off and get his brows done?
I mean, we're only 3 episodes in, and there's already so much that I'm like titillated by, and my imagination runs wild. So I can't wait to see where it goes. But I think you're right. I think it is going to be this Heather kind of paranoia against Brittany, and I also think Whitney. If you watch that season trailer, Whitney, I think, is accused of I needed to find out, so I reached out. So I don't know if that.
I think that's Monica.
Whitney.
My theory is that's Monica. I think Whitney's going to reach out to Monica, like you said. They've shown her in every episode in that very it happened years ago, black and white. When we know that it happened literally in our lifetime earlier this year. Can I also say real quick? I was saying earlier, I don't want the show to ever become boring. I think we have to talk about the elephant in the room. Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
That's what I was literally going to say. That we talked offline. That you said you watched the first 3 episodes of Hulu's The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
Well, I'm watching the rest of them tonight. I'm watching the rest of them.
You sounded pretty excited. You said you were like, wow, I got a new lease on life. This is amazing.
Gosh, it's there's such a disconnect in the sense that on one show there's this big controversy because somebody might have returned some clothes to Nordstrom, and then on the other show they're like, oh, we were soft flopping. Yeah, it's like we were having sex with each other's husbands in front of each other.
Well, and the first episode ends with an arrest. The first episode ends with Taylor Frankie Paul, and then it picks up 8 months later. I'm telling you, if that's not something that gets you involved, where you're like, oh my god,
listen, man,
I couldn't believe that first episode.
I couldn't believe it. I did that. By the way, I did not see that arrest coming. I think anybody who has ever gotten intoxicated, that is your worst nightmare. Your worst nightmare is that you are going to be drunk and on the come down while in handcuffs being loaded into a cold police car. It's insane to me the amount of ground that first episode covered. I would have watched more, but I had to go to sleep at some point, so I only got through 3 episodes. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, is Salt Lake City just my safe comfort blanket? But this is this is a spicy margarita that has just come into the room.
Well, think of it like the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives could be like Menudo. It could be like a feeder system into like Real Housewives because it's like younger TikTok and like it's a whole different thing, but it's still Utah. Mom talk.
Mom talk. It's wow, it blew my mind. Somehow they always make it seem like everybody knew Taylor and her confession. The girl who broke TikTok. I feel like I followed the news quite a bit. I had not heard about it before I saw this show, but it's absolutely on my radar now. And and I also heard that they're going to do something like 20 episodes in season 2.
Yes.
So they know they have a hit.
Hulu even sent me the press release yesterday to say 20 episode second season, which means you guys, even like think about it, Orange County this season only gets 15 episodes. We're doing like smaller seasons over on Bravo, but for Hulu to do this, that means they really believe in this, and it must have gotten all of the attention that they wanted it to get, right?
I bet you the metrics on it are really good. I bet you like it has like a great demographic number. This to me, like half of the ladies on that show, like I feel like this is what Whitney would have been, season 1 of Salt Lake. You know what I mean? Like they all seem. I love it with one of them. It's just like, yeah, we're in Utah, so there are a lot of blonde bitches. It's just like it's man, I don't even know what to say about that show, except that it is truly addicting, and it was hard to stop watching.
Well, and Diallo, the thing that I hope that I'm really excited to get for you to watch the rest of it, because what I think it does really well too is that it downshifts after the first episode because we pick up 8 months later. But
yeah, some episode with a different pace, absolutely.
Oh yeah. But then it kind of refines itself. Like it's not bad. It's just a different pace. And then you get to have like Whitney come up as like a quote unquote villain. And then you get to see
Whitney from Secret Lives meaning the one who's the most Mormon.
The one that moved to Hawaii and came back, and her husband.
Yes, exactly. She's the one who's always like
dalliances.
Oh god, that was a really hard conversation to watch, and you definitely felt horrible for Whitney. I'm kind of team Whitney on that, in the sense that Taylor completely stole like her moment. Whether intentional or not. I actually don't think Taylor was thinking, "Oh, I'm going to steal this other woman's moment." But like, I totally know what Whitney would say. She's like, "I just come out, I bring this up to the group," and then Taylor's just like, "Oh, by the way, I have something to talk about as well." And it's just like the moment moves away from her. I just found that fascinating, just from a purely because Heather's movement away from the church is not Taylor's movement away from the church. You know what I mean? Like Taylor's just like, hey, I've always been a drinker. I love to drink. And Heather was the good Mormon, the good Mormon wife for so long before she had her moment. But like when you have 18 people in the world's smallest hot tub, and there's one guy with a flask, and then they cut to Whitney, and she's like, I just thought bringing out that booze in the hot tub was so disrespectful. Like you really start to get a sense of the real push and pull of Mormonism. They were doing laughing gas, and I guess they just have a whole series of loopholes. Like I thought the problem was the caffeine in coffee, but they're drinking energy drinks. You know what I mean? I'm so confused.
You haven't got to the episode where they go to the sip store where they get their favorite sodas and like their favorite like non-caffeine. Like they have a whole like scene where it's like really fascinating because they really get into it. But yeah, like that's what I love is, and Lisa Barlow said this on Salt Lake, Mormon 2.0. These girls are finding these like ways around like the God and the rules. But also I think that's kind of an interesting conversation to have and think about, and it gives it a foundation, which then you're kind of like, oh, I'm intrigued. Like even the opening shot with the Sam Smith song and so
I have a question about that. So obviously in the pilot, they play the Sam Smith song. In subsequent episodes, they play a song that sounds just like the Sam Smith song. Is it a parody song? Is it another Sam Smith song that I didn't know about?
I feel like it's a selling sunset kind of thing where they farm it out to a company.
Yes.
Which, by the way, this is a good idea for a special episode of One Song. You do the Mormon Wives.
Listen, I fundamentally love and hate the selling sunset. I know exactly what you mean by selling sunset. There's this whole there's a whole cottage industry of
like
I'm a boss ass bitch. I'm a boss. And they're like, I'm gonna make my money. You're gonna see me do it. Like, you know, like just every
And the
song. I'm
songs
like,
are only, they're like full songs. They're 30-second songs that like a company
if
is writing
that,
for
if
all of
that,
these shows. And it,
if that.
but it's, you're right. It's always like girl gossip, like, gonna be a boss today. The sun is shining in LA. And you can like,
I see you hating me. That's cool. I'll make that money. You know, like it's just like there aren't this many songs in the universe, and I know you're clearing each one of these songs for like $70. Like I, this is the one job that AI absolutely threatening. Because you can make 1,000 of them if you just
we
put it in the
found,
proper template.
oh my God,
Sorry
now
to
you
say.
scared the crap out of me because this will eventually be AI's
Oh,
job
this is
is
gonna
doing,
listen. Bravo's going to try and save money where Bravo's going to try and save it. All of them, Netflix, all of them. So they are going to type into a machine. They're going to be like, "Give me Charlie XCX vocals, theme. I'm a boss woman making money." Like it's going to be the thing. It's absolutely going to be
well,
the thing. I hate to break the bubble for people, but I
no,
think that job's
I
going to
think
go away.
we're some of us are like, there's a lot of sophisticated people out there that realize what's happening here. But I can't wait for the rest of your journey for Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Before I let you go in
Yes.
these last like 15 or whatever we have, I did want to
No.
talk because I hate to kiss your ass, and I know you probably get it a lot, but this one song I think is truly special for me. How did this, just to remind people that didn't listen to that first episode, you and Luxury, how did this show come to be? And I will say, you guys put so much work into this. Those Depeche Mode last 2 episodes that you guys released, I'm telling, like, I went back and listened to Depeche Mode's catalog a year ago, and you guys
Yeah.
just like nailed so many things that I had not even thought about. The way you provide like color commentary and like people, like the experiences, talking about that Depeche Mode concert by the Beverly
Mm.
Center. It was just amazing. How
Yeah,
did this all
man.
come about?
So we I met Luxury through a DJ friend of mine on the East Side. You know, back when I was cool and DJing spots like the Shortstop, and you know, the East Side of LA and Silver Lake used to have a really fun indie rock slash electro scene. One of those DJs introduced me to Luxury, and we became friends, but like just friends in passing. During the pandemic, I started watching his TikToks, and I was like, "Wow, this guy's really fun to watch." Separately, I started doing more comedy uh, online, and somebody saw it and they were like, "Hey, do you want to do the show with Snoop Dogg?" I did a show with an episode of a show with Snoop Dogg, and one of the people who worked for Kevin Hart, because the show is produced by Kevin Hart. One of Kevin Hart's people came up to me and was like, "Hey, you know, you're really funny. I love your take on stuff. Have you thought about doing a podcast?" I was like, "I hadn't, but you know," I said, I truthfully told, I was like, "I know I haven't." They were like, "What if we paired you with like some young influencers or something?" I was like, "You're saying I'm not young?" You know, like, but no, seriously, I got it. They were like, "We're gonna have you be like this guy, and then we'll get somebody in their late teens or 20s, maybe off of Montauk. Who knows?" I told them, I was like, "You know what I'd really like to do, instead of just a general pop culture show, I would love to do music with this guy who's doing TikToks." And my pitch to him and to Heartbeat, which is Kevin Hart's company, was, let's do a show where we take one song every episode and break down how it was made, in what historical context was it created. Here are the individual parts of the song. Like, this is the bass line, this is the drums, this is the vocal part. And then let's talk about how it affected the genre that it was made. And I said, I think what will make it interesting, other than the fun facts and the anecdotes and the music itself, it'll get people to listen to songs that they know or have heard a billion times in a new way. Because I found that, finding out all these other things about a song can help you to appreciate it more. And that was what we pitched them, and that's what we've been making. And now we've had like something, approaching 60 or 70 episodes, and we're having a blast. And there are a
And they're
lot of
all
songs that we have not gotten to.
And you guys, just so you know, like if you haven't listened yet, like they include the songs and like the stems and they'll take you through all of this, not just the song itself, but behind the scenes. Like they tell the whole story. And there's something, as a music fan, I geek out so heavily to this, you guys. I'm telling you, you will love it. Are you able to tease any songs that you guys have coming up? And
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say in general, like even if you think you don't like a song, you know what I mean? Like, I always use the example of Stevie Wonder's "Superstition." I know a lot of people like that song, but like that's a song that, like, it may not be in your top 10, but when we tell you the story of how it was made, how Stevie made it, I think it gives you a different appreciation. And we'll talk about a song for the 70s like Superstition. We'll talk about a song for the 2020s like Lucid Dreams by Juice WRLD. We'll talk about everything in between. We talk about Amy Winehouse. We'll talk about Daft Punk. We'll talk about
Metallica.
the Beatles and Metallica and Led Zeppelin. And we'll talk about TLC and SWV and tell you what the difference is, but how both groups were at one point named TLC. And that meant that SWV had to change their name. I mean, like there's a lot of interesting stuff. I love the Depeche Mode episode too because we actually made it into two parts because we wanted to talk about the song "People Are People," but then also follow that up with the biggest song of all time, "Enjoy the Silence," and we were able to talk about how that song was created, how the Violator album blew up in America, and just being in LA, I find it so fascinating. The guys show up near the Beverly Center to do a signing, and something like 60,000, somewhere in the order of like 16,000 kids show up between on La Cienega between Beverly and Third, which if you know LA, that's not a very long block. And so it basically causes this riot, and you've got like LA luminaries like Warren Olney, who now does NPR. Warren Olney saying like Depeche Mode.
Yeah, Depeche. He goes, Depeche Mode. You guys had the clip in there. I was like loving it. Depeche Mode. Yeah.
And somebody called him Depeche Mode. Like nobody, Depeche Mode. Like nobody knew how to pronounce their name because the 30s and ups at that time didn't follow the music scene. They'd become their parents. But then the Gen Xers were into it. So we just have a fun. I know for a fact we have some great episodes coming up. I don't think there's any big secret. I'll tell you real quick. I think we're covering everything in the coming weeks from Michael Jackson's Thriller. I think we're going to cover that one for Halloween purposes. We're obviously going to hit All I Want for Christmas. That's a song, Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas. That's a song you're probably like, I don't ever need to hear that song again. It's everywhere. I'm telling you, by the time Christmas comes around, all the Mariah Carey fans and all the people who may not even be the biggest Mariah Carey fans, we have so much to say about that song, and we're going to break down every single part of it. Listen to the show. Just click on a song that you like, and it'll show you how we do what we do. And I really appreciate the comments, Ryan, because we worked really hard on that show.
Oh, I mean, you can tell, but I'm not saying it comes off like you guys are working hard. It's just that I know how much it takes and how much research and like the way you guys flow together, I just think is really just beautiful. They do have guests on, but I love when it's just them as well, when it's just like them going back and forth. But I will say, I always tell the audience is that, art is really based on recommendation and things of that nature. And when I was a kid growing up in Kansas, I had these Bays twins that turned me on to REM and Depeche Mode. And I really owe them so much because I was a nerd. My parents like listened to Michael Bolton and stuff like that. And they said, hey, this is out there. And I remember Depeche Mode, the 101, the live album, and Behind the Wheel and Dr. Strange.
Such a great documentary, 101. Such a great documentary. I mean, so many moments of this band's life revolve around LA, from that Pasadena show to the to the riot to the Beverly Center riot. It's just they love LA in ways because we were there. We were always, LA in particular was always there for Depeche Mode's, for similar moments in their history.
Yeah, and you even brought the Anton Corbijn into it in terms of their look, in terms of how important that was during the Violator album. And if I'm not mistaken, isn't that the same guy that was like working with U2 around like, the Unforgettable Fire?
So yes, if you look at that man's credits, you can kind of credit him with the 80s in a lot of ways, because seriously, his eye, which was it was always cool, but there's diversity in the ways that he would like do each band. It's just, it helped define the decade.
Yeah. So that's highly recommended. And then finally, Diallo, when you were growing up in Atlanta, did you ever think this would be your life? Because you, like I said, we talked about the podcast, but you have producing, show running. You're working on like 3 different shows right now. You've been an actor in so many shows. Did you ever imagine this for yourself? Like, because were you somebody that was always like believed in yourself and like, I can do anything?
I always believed in myself, but I had no idea. I didn't actually even decide what I wanted to do with my life until I was about 24. I try to remember that whenever I see my kids like sort of moving from one interest to another, because everybody wants their kid to be essentially like Stevie Wonder. I've always played the piano. Michael Jordan. I've always dribbled my basketball. Like, I think sometimes people know from the beginning, and other people just sort of have to find their way. And I think I'm one of those people who had to find their way. I'm still finding my way. And I'm still trying to be a good parent good husband, and while still trying to put good artwork out into the world.
Well, you are a great guest. Thank you for all of your time today to talk about these very important women of Salt Lake.
Yes.
We will follow all of your moves. I'm going to put all of the information on the show notes, you guys. Dude, thank you so much. This was a special treat for me.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I'll come back anytime you have me. Thank you so much.
Next week, let's do it. Okay, bye.